You ever open a file at work and instantly know your whole life is about to change? Because when I clicked my Christmas bonus folder, I didn't see a bonus. I saw a trail of fraud, retaliation, and an NDA the company hoped no one would ever read. And that one click, it brought an entire department to its knees. My name is Marissa. I'm 39 years old. And this is how I turned their betrayal into my blueprint for power. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. I can still feel the warmth of that boardroom the moment it all began, like the air itself was buzzing with a kind of forced holiday cheer that never quite reached me. The windows were lined with cheap red tinsel, the kind the office assistant bought from Walmart the day before because our manager insisted we needed to look festive even if none of us actually felt festive. A faint smell of instant cocoa floated around the room. Executives were already laughing too loudly, the way people do when they want you to know they're generous. Their hands tapped against the envelopes on the table, each one marked Christmas bonus in bold print, as if the words alone could erase a year of overwork and disrespect. I sat near the end of the long wooden conference table, running my finger along a dent in the surface left from someone dropping a coffee thermos years ago. I remember thinking how fitting it was that this table held all our mistakes. I opened my company-issued laptop, waiting for it to hum awake the way it always did, the fan stuttering like an old car in the Michigan winter. The holiday screensaver still flickered on the projector ahead of us, little cartoon snowflakes drifting across a green background. It felt like a joke. My manager, Eric, stood near the head of the table holding his mug like he wanted someone to take a picture of him. He had that smug half-smile he wore whenever he thought he had power. He kept saying things like, "This is the year we show appreciation, and you're all the heartbeat of this company." Words that meant nothing. Words I had heard him use to manipulate people for years. When he tapped his finger against his folder and said, "Okay, go ahead and open your bonus folders," something inside me tightened. Not because of excitement, because of suspicion. I clicked the folder labeled Bonus 2024. I expected nothing. Truly. Maybe a PDF of numbers that didn't match reality. Maybe a letter copied and pasted from last year. But a photo? I didn't expect that. The moment the file opened, a bright, high-definition picture filled my screen. Not a spreadsheet, not a document, a selfie. Eric's face leaned close to another woman, a coworker. Their company badges visible, their lips pressed together while they stood inside the storage room near the server rack. My breath froze. Someone across the table dropped a plastic fork onto their plate. A soft splash hit the table when someone else spilled their cocoa. The whole room went silent like someone had unplugged the world. I felt every pair of eyes whip toward me, then toward my screen, like gravity itself was forcing them to look. I didn't touch anything. I didn't panic. I didn't even blink. The truth was louder than anything I could have said. Eric's face, usually flushed with false confidence, drained to a sick shade of gray. His jaw went loose. His eyes darted between me, the photo, the executives, HR. The woman next to him in the photo was married. She worked in accounting. He knew the rules. He helped write them. But that wasn't even the best part. The file automatically advanced when my cursor twitched. A hotel receipt appeared, his name printed at the top, the room charges billed to the corporate card, the logo of a hotel in downtown Detroit, the date stamped in the corner from a weekend he claimed he had spent with his nephews. A soft gasp escaped someone near the front. I felt the air shift like a storm was rolling in. Another file opened, a screenshot of messages, his voice in text form saying, "Keep it quiet. The company doesn't need to know the budget-covered part of our trip." My stomach settled into this strange sense of calm. For months, he had dismissed my concerns. Gaslit me, told me I was imagining discrepancies in spending reports. He even implied I lacked the emotional intelligence to handle budget analysis. But I handled it just fine. That day, I handled it perfectly. I clicked again, slower this time, like each file deserved a moment in the spotlight. Another image, another receipt. A message thread with details that contradicted everything he had ever claimed. HR stood up so quickly their chair screeched across the hardwood floor. One of the executives leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table like a coach watching the final seconds of a game he realized he might lose. Eric reached toward me, his voice shaking as he said, "Marissa, stop. That's not what you think." He held his hand out like he expected me to take pity on him, like I'd close the laptop and apologize for intruding into his mistakes. He had no idea how long he'd been underestimating me. I kept my voice steady as I looked at him. I didn't raise it. I didn't let it shake. I said, "Eric, these files were in the bonus folder. I'm just reviewing what you gave us." Something in his face cracked. I saw panic push through the tension. His hand trembled. The executives murmured among themselves. The HR director whispered something to the VP, their eyes narrowing. For a moment, the room felt like the air before a tornado touches down. And me? I just sat there, calm, quiet, watching everything unfold as the truth he hid buried itself into every corner of the room. Because this wasn't my revenge, not really. This was his own incompetence, his own carelessness, his own secrets colliding with the wrong folder at the wrong time. He had synced his personal files to the company drive the night before while preparing the bonus documents. He must have been tired, or stupid, or arrogant enough to believe no mistake could ever catch him. And then he handed me the folder with a smile. That was the part that haunted me. He smiled when he did it, like he trusted I would never open it, never question him, never notice the truth, even if it slapped me across the face. For years, he treated me like wallpaper in that office. Quiet, forgettable, easy to overlook. He thought I'd never be the one to pull the thread that unraveled him. But as the files kept coming, as the room fell deeper into silence, I felt something shift inside me. A quiet reclaiming of the self I had buried beneath politeness, beneath work ethic, beneath fear of retaliation. I finally felt seen, not for the chaos, not for the scandal, but for the truth I had held silently for years while he took credit for my work, embarrassed me in meetings, and told me I wasn't leadership material. I watched him crumble in front of the very people he tried to impress, and I didn't say another word. I didn't have to. The evidence said everything, and when the last file closed on its own, the room remained silent. No one knew what to do, not yet, but this was only the beginning. The moment the truth landed was just part one of everything that came next. I wasn't done, not even close. This was just the first crack in a foundation that had fooled everyone but me. And once cracks appear, the whole structure eventually falls. I did not sleep that night. I lay awake in my small Decatur apartment with the heater rattling in the corner, sounding like it was coughing itself awake every few minutes. The Georgia cold had settled in thick and low, pressing itself against the windows until the glass trembled. I kept the kitchen light on, not because I was afraid of the dark, but because the glow kept my thoughts steady. I sat at the old kitchen table I bought off Craigslist my first month here. It wobbles if you lean on the left side, and the varnish is faded where someone once placed a hot pot without a trivet. I have always liked flawed things. They remind me not everything breaks because of me. I had my laptop in front of me, the same company-issued one that felt like a burden some days and a shield on others. The files were all there, neatly arranged inside the folder he had gifted to me like a twisted holiday present pretending to be generosity. Bonus 2024. It should have been harmless. A spreadsheet, a letter, maybe a brief video from leadership reminding us how valued we all were. Instead, it contained his entire downfall. I clicked through them slowly, letting each discovery settle inside me like warm tea. I could almost hear my own heartbeat, steady and quiet, as if it had been waiting for this moment longer than I realized. File names like Q44 Proposal and Manager. Notes looked professional enough until I opened them. Some were chat logs saved as text files. Some were screenshots taken, so quickly the edges were blurred. Some were meal receipts from overpriced restaurants where he claimed he was networking. One folder held short voice memos, his voice low and smug, talking about shifting budget funds. And then there was the Google Doc titled Just Delete Later. He never deleted it. Inside was a brief note addressed to the red-haired woman from accounting. A sentence that changed everything. I will move budget from the intern fund. No one checks that account anyway. I read it once, then again. Then a third time, slower, tracing each word with my eyes like it was a confession written directly to me. Because it was not just about an affair, not just office misconduct. This was theft. This was manipulation. This was him counting on no one noticing because people like him believe consequences are optional. And people like me, we are trained to never question. I leaned back in my chair, listening to the heater trying its best to keep up. Outside, a gust of wind slammed against the loose screen on the kitchen window. It rattled violently, and for a moment it sounded like someone knocking, but no one was there. The only thing trying to get inside was the truth. I kept scrolling until the screen blurred a little from how long I had been staring. I should have felt scared, anxious, nervous about what would happen next, but I did not. Instead, I felt this soft, growing stillness inside me, a kind of clarity I had not felt in years. He gave me everything, wrapped inside a bonus folder, like a poisoned gift he thought I would thank him for. Morning came slowly, seeping into the apartment with pale light. I showered, pulled my hair back, added a touch of lip gloss, and drove to the office with my coffee balanced between my knees, the way I always do when I am in a rush. The building looked the same as every other day, but felt different, like the walls themselves were bracing for something. The moment I stepped into the lobby, I felt it. Eyes lifting, conversations pausing, whispers soft enough to pretend they were not whispers. No one said my name, but they knew. Some gave me small nods, almost respectful. Others looked away quickly, as if eye contact with me made them complicit in something. Jared was nowhere to be found. Not out sick. Not working from home. Gone. Completely. I walked to my desk, set my bag down, and logged in like it was any other morning. My hands were steady. At 10:15, my work phone buzzed. HR requesting my presence. Legal included. I walked to the glass-walled conference room that still smelled faintly of gingerbread candles someone placed on the windowsill for holiday cheer. The room felt tight with tension. Mark from legal sat at the head, his hands laced together, his expression unreadable. Angela from HR typed on her laptop, her fingers trembling slightly. Mark spoke first. His voice was low, measured. "Marissa, we would like you to walk us through exactly what you found." I kept my posture straight, my voice calm. It was all in the bonus folder assigned to me. I did not open anything I was not told to. Angela swallowed hard. We checked the logs. The syncing error seems to be on Jared's end. It is confirming it now. Mark leaned back in his chair, studying me. "You understand the gravity of what you uncovered?" I nodded once. "I do," which is why I screenshotted everything, in case he tried to delete it remotely. Something shifted in Mark's expression. He smiled slightly. Not warmly. More like someone acknowledging a chess move they had not seen coming. Smart. His tone was different. No trace of doubt, no condescension. Only respect. That moment felt like a turning point. Not revenge, not victory. A reclaiming. Because I had not always been invisible here. I had been made invisible. Molded into it by people who pretended they knew my worth better than I did. 2 years ago, Jared promised me a promotion after I trained the new hires. I trained 5. He gave the role to a man who lasted 3 months and could not even format a spreadsheet correctly. When I questioned him privately, his voice softened with that fake concern he perfected. "Marissa, you are so valuable where you are. You are the glue." I remember staring at the wall behind him, wondering how glue could feel so disposable. I never asked again. I stopped raising my hand in meetings, stopped volunteering ideas that were credited to someone else. I went quiet, but quiet does not mean unaware. Angela looked up from her typing. "We are going to need a written statement." I reached into my bag and pulled out a neatly labeled folder. I already prepared one. It includes file names, timestamps, and where each document was located. She blinked, startled. Mark lifted his brows. You were ready. I met his eyes. I had to be. Women like me do not get second chances in offices like this. We get warnings. We get excuses. We get told to be patient while others leapfrog over us. But we rarely get justice unless we bring it ourselves. I left the conference room feeling the floor shift beneath me. Not in fear, in alignment. People who once talked over me in meetings held the door open as I approached. Those who used to forward their busy work onto my desk sent polite emails asking if I needed anything. Amazing what evidence can do. That Friday, the company sent a brief memo. Jared had resigned. No fanfare, no explanation. Just silence where he used to stand. The woman in the photo did not lose her job. I made sure of that. She was transferred to another department without penalty, because I remembered seeing her crying in the stairwell months earlier after Jared insisted she shadow him more closely for her development. She did not need consequences. She needed safety. And me? I did not get a bonus envelope. I got something better, a new title, Senior Regional Consultant, full autonomy, remote approval power, a corner office without glass walls, no applause, but no objections. Because by then, everyone understood. I did not get lucky. I got prepared. And when I opened that bonus folder, I was not looking for money. I was looking for proof. The Monday after Jared vanished from the building, the whole office felt different. Not safer. Not calmer. Just quieter, like someone had pressed a pillow over the mouth of the entire floor. The air itself seemed to hold its breath whenever a door opened or footsteps echoed down the hall. I pushed through the front glass doors wearing the same black coat I bought during an outlet sale near Chattanooga last winter. The one with the loose button on the right pocket that always snags on my bag strap. I felt the fabric shift as I walked, the familiar pull grounding me in a day that felt anything but normal. People looked up as I passed. A nod here, a tight smile there, respect or fear, hard to tell which. Either way, it was a change, and change has its own heaviness. I could feel it settle along my shoulders like a second coat. I passed the break room. Two analysts stood near the coffee machine, whispering with the kind of energy people use when they think the walls can protect them. The machine hissed softly, filling a paper cup with burnt espresso. Their voices stopped the moment they saw me. One of them straightened her blouse, smoothed her hair, as if my presence was a test she suddenly needed to prepare for. Analyst. "Morning, Marissa." Her voice cracked a little, a tiny jump in tone she probably hoped I didn't notice. Me. "Morning." My voice didn't wobble. I walked to the counter, poured my coffee slowly, letting the smell of stale creamer and cheap roast wrap around me. I didn't turn around. Didn't check if they kept whispering. They didn't. They slipped away like leaves caught in a cold draft, scattering toward their desks. It was ironic. They treated me like I had pulled off some brilliant heist. Like I had spent nights hacking files, plotting revenge, weaving a trap only I could understand. But the truth was so simple it almost embarrassed me. I had just opened a folder. One click. One mistake on his end. One accidental window into a life built on arrogance and shortcuts. And suddenly, I was the woman everyone avoided or respected or feared. It was hard to tell the difference. My new office was on the 4th floor. Not fancy, but a world away from my old cubicle with the flickering overhead light that buzzed like angry bees. This space had a real window that overlooked the parking lot and the strip mall across the street. I could see the diner with the flickering neon sign, the dry cleaner with faded posters in the window, the Walgreens with a giant Santa inflatable wobbling in the cold Tennessee wind like it was bracing itself for a fall. I set my things down and let myself breathe for the first time in days. I touched the smooth edge of the new desk, warm from the sun, solid. It felt earned, maybe for the first time in my career. But peace never lasts long, not for women like me. Peace is a guest that visits, but never stays. Around 11, an email popped up from IT. Subject: additional synced files found. My stomach tightened, but not out of fear. Something closer to inevitability. Like stepping onto a path you already knew would be waiting for you. I opened the message. It had recovered a batch of files that were partially uploaded during the syncing glitch. They asked whether I wanted to review them myself or forward them to legal directly. I stared at the blinking cursor for a moment, hearing the soft hum of the vent above me, the way it rattled when it first warmed up. Then I typed back, "I will review them and forward anything relevant." The files came through as a zip folder. I clicked slowly, feeling that cold ripple run along my arms, the same electric flame of anticipation I had felt the first time I saw that photo on the projector screen. Inside were clips, not photos, audio recordings, voice notes, the kind people make when they think no one else will ever hear them. Raw, unedited, dangerous. I clicked the first one. Jared's voice filled my office instantly, so casual it made the hair on my neck rise. "I can write off half these trips and no one at corporate checks. If anyone asks, training, throw that word in and they stop reading." I froze for a moment. My fingers curled slightly on the mouse. I hit pause. The sudden silence felt louder than his voice. Another clip. "Marissa is sharp but too passive. Easy to dodge. She'll do what she's told." I paused again, leaned back in my chair. Let his words sink in. Too passive. Easy to dodge. For a moment, something stung behind my ribs, like he had reached into an old bruise I had convinced myself had faded. Maybe once, but not anymore. I clicked the next recording. A woman's voice this time. The red-haired accountant. Her voice trembled like she was trying to hold herself together. "I don't feel right about using the budget like this. What if they find out?" Jared laughed, soft, dismissive, the kind of laugh that turns people small. "They won't, trust me. I've been playing this game longer than you've been in the workforce." I looked toward the window as a gust of wind knocked snowflakes sideways. My reflection in the glass looked different, not older, sharper. A woman who could finally see the shape of everything she had survived. There was more. A spreadsheet with hidden tabs, a list of department charges that didn't match our quarterly reviews, meals, trips, unnamed expenses. He had been siphoning money from multiple accounts for years, adjusting numbers where he thought no one would look. The confidence of a man who thought oversight was an optional courtesy. I sent everything to legal, no commentary, no emotion, just facts. Within an hour, my phone rang. Mark, you just handed us a full misconduct case. This is bigger than we realized." "Me." I figured. His tone shifted, softer, like talking to someone he wished he had listened to sooner. "Mark, I want you to know your decision to step forward changes things here. It really does." I looked at the melting snowflake sliding down the glass. Me. I didn't step forward. He stepped on his own file trail. A small laugh slipped out of him. "Mark, fair enough. But that was when the real shift happened. Not in the office. In me. Every piece of evidence felt like a weight sliding off my shoulders. Every time he ignored my suggestions in meetings. Every time he cut me off mid-sentence. Every time he called me too emotional when I questioned discrepancies. Every time he smiled that dismissive smile that said I would always be beneath him. And yet, every file proved one thing. He underestimated the wrong woman. That afternoon, HR called for a confidential meeting. I joined the video call. Angela appeared first, pale and exhausted. Then Mark. Then two people from corporate compliance. Angela: "We have enough to move forward with full charges." Compliance woman: "We also need to interview the employee involved." Me: "She didn't do anything illegal. He manipulated her. I want that noted." They exchanged glances. Compliance man nodded. Compliance man: "Her role will be reviewed separately. Your testimony matters." It wasn't mercy. It was fairness. A kind of fairness Jared never extended to anyone. After the meeting, I sat at my desk holding my lukewarm coffee, letting the ripples of the moment pass over me. The heater clicked softly. A car alarm chirped in the lot below. Someone laughed on the floor beneath me, normal life returning in slow breaths. I realized then this wasn't the revenge. Not yet. This was the uncovering, the beginning of the collapse. The part where he crumbled publicly was still coming, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of being seen. I was ready to be heard. The public exposure didn't happen in a courtroom. It didn't need to. It happened in the same place where the first crack formed, the same place where the truth accidentally burst open like a faulty pipe that finally gave way under its own pressure. The boardroom, the original stage, the incubator of his arrogance, and now, the perfect place for the final reveal. When the meeting invitation appeared in my inbox titled Quarterly Review, I already knew it wasn't really a review. Not this time. Not after everything. It was a ritual, a cleansing ceremony dressed up as corporate efficiency, the company's way of saying, we've handled the problem, nothing to see here, let us move forward. But I wasn't there to help them move on. I was there to make sure they remembered exactly who let it happen in the first place, and why ignoring women like me always costs them eventually. The boardroom looked the same as it had weeks earlier. Glass walls, polished walnut table, two bright ceiling lights that cast reflections across the surface like ripples in water. But something subtle had shifted. The chairs were arranged differently. There were more people than usual, and this time I didn't sit near the end. I sat at the head. Not because I demanded it, because they invited me there. They had placed a nameplate in front of the seat as if to make it official, as if to etch it into memory. Angela stood near the projector screen with her tablet in hand. Her usually calm voice carried a thin tremor beneath it as she addressed the room. Angela, Marissa has helped us uncover a pattern of financial misconduct that, honestly, we didn't see. She's agreed to present a summary of findings. She glanced at me as she spoke, a look somewhere between admiration and exhaustion. I gave a small nod, steadying myself. I hadn't brought theatrics, no dramatic speeches, no reenactments. I brought files, simple, chronological, clear, professional, impossible to dismiss. I clicked the remote. The projector hummed. Slide 1. Training retreat, October. $3,742 in unexplained charges. No one spoke. The numbers glowed on the wall like an accusation. Slide 2. Chat logs. Names redacted except his. He wrote, "Let's list the dinner as client engagement. No one will check if it's marked urgent." Whispers fluttered across the table like startled wings. Someone shifted in their chair. Slide 3. Payroll adjustment for a temporary assistant who never clocked in. 6 months of payments that never should have existed. The air thinned. Even the HVAC seemed to hush. I could feel the silence pooling around the table like cold water. Then came the twist. Slide 4. An email from 3 months ago. From him to corporate. Subject line. Concerns about Marissa's conduct. I didn't turn toward the room. I didn't need to. I felt the confusion hit them like a soft wave. First curiosity, then surprise, then something like disbelief. I clicked again. The email opened across the entire screen. "He's been unusually intrusive with budget reports," he had written. "Suggest monitoring her for unstable behavior, possible overreaction tendencies." I let it sit. Let it breathe. Let the room feel the sting of how he had tried to preemptively frame me as the problem long before I ever opened the wrong folder. Me. He tried to discredit me before I even found the files. This was his insurance. Someone exhaled sharply. It sounded like Ben, one of the mid-level directors. He whispered almost involuntarily, "Jesus." I placed both hands gently on the table, palms resting flat on the wood. I leaned forward, steady, anchored. Me. If I hadn't opened that bonus folder, this would have continued. For years. You wouldn't be sitting here today. You'd still be funding his weekends. His side projects? His shortcuts. Mark cleared his throat, rubbing the bridge of his nose as though the weight of everything had settled there. "Mark, what do you recommend next?" The question didn't surprise me. I had known it was coming. I didn't flinch. Me. Full audit of his hiring decisions, department budgets, especially the interns, and any department with higher turnover than average. Silence. Then a nod from the compliance representative. Then another. A chain reaction of agreement. Like dominoes falling in sync, like the company finally catching up with what I had known all along. When I walked out of that room, no applause followed. No congratulatory handshakes, no speeches. What followed me was stillness. The thick kind. The kind that appears after a thunderclap. A moment when everyone is assessing the wreckage and deciding what truth means for them now. But I already knew what it meant for me. I drove home in the early evening, the sky lowering into a deeper blue as streetlights blinked awake. I made dinner absent-mindedly, boiled pasta, light garlic sauce, a little salt. I wasn't hungry, but I needed the routine, the familiar, quiet rhythm. I sat at the table, the one I bought off Craigslist years ago, tracing the wood grain with my thumb, letting the day unravel in my mind. Then, around 8:12 p.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I hesitated, answered. Her voice emerged soft, measured, almost fragile. The woman from the earlier investigation. The one whose name I'd fought to keep off formal misconduct documentation. The one he had pulled into his circle by subtle pressure and professional manipulation, using mentorship and urgency as tools to bend her boundaries. Her. Hi, Marissa, it's me. I knew the voice immediately. Me. Hi, are you all right? A pause. A shaky breath. Her. I just wanted to say thank you. I shook my head instinctively even though she couldn't see me. Me. You don't owe me anything. Her voice cracked, the words slipping through like someone exhaling after holding their breath too long. Her. I thought I was alone. I thought no one noticed how uncomfortable he made things. Not just for me. For everyone he got close to. I let silence hold for a moment. Not the kind that ignores someone. The kind that makes room for them. Me. I saw. I just needed time to do something with it. She let out a soft, uneven sound, half laugh, half sob. Relief, breaking open in real time. Her. He made me think questioning him would ruin my career. He said compliance would think I was being dramatic. My chest tightened. I had heard that same condescending tone from him myself, more times than I wanted to remember. I didn't say anything for a moment, not because I didn't have anything to offer, but because there was nothing to fix, nothing to replace, only the truth to let settle. That call changed something in me, because I realized then that this wasn't just about revenge. It wasn't even about exposing a thief or clearing my name. It was about rescue. Not rescue in the dramatic sense. Rescue in the quiet, steady kind of way. Rescue for the next girl, the next intern, the next junior employee who gets told she's too curious about budget inconsistencies. The next woman who gets labeled unstable because she noticed something she wasn't supposed to. The next one who gets brushed aside when she raises her hand. So I stayed. Not for the corner office. Not for the salary increase. Not even for the validation that finally arrived after years of being overlooked. I stayed because history only changes when someone refuses to let the pattern repeat. I stayed because silence is contagious, and someone has to break it before it spreads. And I stayed because no one else should ever have to feel like they're the only one who sees what's wrong. Not in this office. Not in any office. Not ever again. They thought it was over. Really over. Like everything had been neatly swept into a labeled folder, zipped shut, archived and tucked somewhere on a server no one ever checked. Jared was gone. The audit was underway. HR was emailing cheerful updates about implementing new oversight protocols, like adding a few checkboxes could erase the rot underneath. People slipped back into their routines with a strange eagerness. Polite smiles in the hallway, brisk nods in the elevator. Someone even sent out a sign-up sheet for the holiday potluck. The office wanted its normal rhythm back, the steady hum of avoidance and routine, like none of it had ever happened. But I couldn't move on. Not yet. Because there was one more file, a file I hadn't opened. One buried deep in the recovered cache IT had sent after the board presentation. I had skimmed past it that first day, half exhausted, half unwilling to go down another rabbit hole. A file labeled Personal NDA Doc. I assumed it was a template. Jared used dozens of them. He'd attach the wrong documents to emails all the time. It wouldn't have surprised me if it was just a stray form he dragged into the wrong folder. But a week after the boardroom presentation, after the silence, after the stares, After the heavy pause that followed every mention of his name, I finally opened it. It wasn't a template. It wasn't blank. It was an actual signed agreement, a non-disclosure agreement between Jared and the company. Signed 2 years before I was hired. The air felt thick around me as I scrolled. It wasn't about misuse of funds. It wasn't about a personal dispute. It wasn't about a misunderstanding. It was about another employee, a woman who uncovered discrepancies in training budgets, similar to the ones I had been questioning, a woman who tried to escalate concerns up the chain, a woman who suddenly resigned one Friday afternoon and was gone by Monday morning. No farewell email, no celebration, no notice. The NDA detailed the terms of her separation: compensation, silence, classification of her exit as voluntary, a sealed internal complaint. Her name tugged at something in my memory. It took a few seconds before it clicked. I had seen her name once, on an Employee of the Month plaque in the hallway. A faded photo, a woman with a nervous but proud smile. And then, nothing. No trace, no story, no goodbye. She had been erased. I read the NDA 3 times. It was real. It was deliberate. And it wasn't just Jared's signature on it. A senior VP from corporate had signed it too. I sat still for a long time. Too still. My office window reflected the winter sky, gray, then blue, then gray again, as if the day couldn't make up its mind. Cars moved in the parking lot below, headlights gliding over cracked pavement. Someone on the floor above laughed, a short burst that faded quickly. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel victorious or righteous or even relieved. I felt haunted, because what happened to me, what almost happened to that intern, wasn't a one-time thing. It wasn't an isolated case. It was patterned, buried, smoothed over with corporate language and sealed envelopes. And now I knew things I couldn't unknow, things I couldn't ignore, things I refused to become complicit in by doing nothing. So I did something I never imagined I'd do. I called my own lawyer, not Mark from legal, not Angela from HR, not anyone whose paycheck depended on containing the mess. My lawyer, the one I'd used years ago when dealing with a landlord who tried to keep my security deposit. A woman who spoke softly but wrote like lightning. She answered on the second ring. Lawyer, Marissa, what's going on? I closed my office door, sat down slowly. Me. I need help, and I need it to be off the record. I told her everything, every file, every recording, every discrepancy, every conversation, every signed document, every name, every silence, every pattern. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush me. She let me talk until the words ran out and the room felt heavy enough to bend. Then she said, Lawyer, we're filing, not just internally. This isn't a company matter anymore. Together, we drafted letters, one to the company, one to the Department of Labor, one to the EEOC, and one to a journalist my lawyer trusted, someone known for handling corporate stories with precision and care. I didn't do it out of spite. I didn't do it to punish or humiliate anyone. I did it because I refused to let my silence turn into another brick in the wall someone else would slam into. The fallout came fast. Within days, you could feel the building shift. Not physically, a cultural shift. Conversations stopped when people saw compliance walking the hall. Directors met behind closed doors with tense faces. Legal assistants hauled boxes of documents down the hallway. There was no illusion of control anymore. The VP who signed the NDA retired. Quietly, no luncheon, no speech, no commemorative plaque. Corporate sent a company-wide apology, carefully worded, heavily vetted but public, the kind they hope gets shared just enough to seem sincere but not enough to attract interest. An investigation was opened, an external one, the kind companies fear, the kind they can't control. Then came the meeting request with my name in the subject line. They didn't offer me a promotion. They offered me a severance package, a generous one, the kind designed to keep someone quiet. I declined. I didn't need hush money. I needed truth. Instead, I requested something else. First, a written statement clearing my name of any internal allegations Jared had made, present or future. something official, something they couldn't walk back. Second, a policy requiring two-person oversight on all budget transfers, travel approvals, and training expenditures across every department. Third, a mentorship program for junior hires, especially women and marginalized employees, run independently of direct supervisors. They agreed, not because they wanted to, because they had to, because too many eyes were watching now. And when I finally left on my own terms, in my own time, there was no celebration waiting, no cake, no balloons, no awkward speech from a director who barely remembered my job title. I packed my office alone, folded my coat over my arm, took my coffee mug, the ceramic one with the chipped handle, slipped my nameplate into my bag, turned off the lights, and walked out. Same elevator, same lobby, same December wind cutting across the parking lot. But it felt different this time, because I wasn't leaving empty-handed. I was leaving with every piece of power they tried to bury, every truth they tried to silence, every file they never meant for me to see, every woman who came before me and never got the chance. They wanted me to see my bonus. So I showed them what the manager had really been earning. And when the doors closed behind me, I didn't look back. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.